Hi, good morning to all of you. So let us start once again. So, good morning to all of you once again. So, let us start. So, yesterday we began to discuss about bilateral relationship between India and Japan, that is the Far Eastern country, very important for India. And we had discussed about this relationship retrospectively, whereby we discussed that Indo-Japan relationship. They started on a very positive note after India's independence, but in course of time, it got a very prominent irritant, important irritant, and that was in form of nuclear approach of India, as Japan was very sensitive towards nuclear approach because it got devastated by nuclear attack. That is why just after some time, clear, Japan started to follow a very sensitive approach, and when India refused to sign NPT and went forward to conduct two nuclear tests, obviously Japan came to the rescue of India, and Japan became opposed to India, and Japan began to impose sanctions upon India that affected Indo-Japan relationship adversely. However, in contemporary times, from the beginning of 21st century, the relationship began to change rapidly just because of change in dynamics due to US got affected by global terrorism. United States convinced Japan, and the two countries decided to come together to support India in its fight against global terrorism to maintain peace and order. More so, the United States and Japan supports India also because of strategic concern, and that strategic concern is to check the hegemonizing tendency of China in Asian continent and to maintain balance of power. So this strategic concern also plays an important role in Indo-Japan relationship. So two countries has the due role in Indo-Japan relationship. One is United States, another is China factor. Clear? And both these factors are very important to understand the overall relationship between India and Japan. Clear? Now, before we come to that strategic consideration to maintain balance of power, clear? On bilateral front, the two countries started to cooperate largely on economic front, as Japan started to pay huge amount of financial assistance to India in known as ODA funds, primarily to promote infrastructural growth and development. So ODA assistance from Japan to India played a very important role in order to promote the development in Japan, as well as in order development in India, as well as to remove the most important bottleneck, that is infrastructural constraints in Indian economy. We'll come to ODA assistance and economic cooperation between India and Japan. Before this, there's a one question from Kriti. Good morning, sir. Please explain geopolitics, geoeconomics, geostrategy, and geopolitical order. These terms make it quite difficult to comprehend sudden editorials. Okay, fine. Yeah, it's very important to understand. You have to go through editorials also, especially of Indian Express and the articles. It's very important. Clear? So, first of all, clear, there are certain terms to be understood. So we'll understand these terms. Clear? The first major term that has been asked is geopolitics. So first is geopolitics. Clear? Second important after geopolitics, geoeconomics. Geoeconomics. Third is geostrategy. Geostrategy. And then we have geopolitical order. Geopolitics and geopolitical order. Fine. These are the terms, Kriti. Okay, fine. So obviously, true, there's no doubt about it. These terms keeps on appearing in newspapers and editorials with respect to India's interaction with major powers of the world. Clear? With this consideration, first of all, understand about the term geopolitics. Clear? Now, what do you mean by the term geopolitics? Clear? See, politics that covers the large geographical area, that is, involves major strategic countries. countries. Clear? So geopolitics means the politics, the political relationship that is largely catering to large geographical area or group of countries. So if two countries follow their own geopolitics, it is basically because to ensure their command over the respective regions so that their political interest could be promoted. Clear? So with regular interactions between the two countries, in spite of differences, large distances, clear, if the two countries cooperates on political front in order to promote their own political order or in order to promote their own political system, it's known as geopolitics. For instance, clear, India and United States are committed to maintain democratic world order. Since India and United States are committed to maintain democratic world order, obviously they cooperate with each other, known as geopolitics, in order to promote political changes in different parts of the world to ensure democratic world order. So this is known as geopolitics. And if this geopolitics succeeds and certain amount of system gets established like democratic order, it is known as geopolitical order. So geopolitical order is basically the series, the development that takes place because of geopolitics, that is cooperation on political front between two or more than two countries. This is known as geopolitics. Similarly, when we use the term geoeconomics, clear, that is economic cooperation among the different countries separated by each other from distances in order to promote the economic growth and development, like trade agreements, free trade agreements, multilateral trade agreements. This comes under geoeconomics. For instance, yesterday only we had discussed about India and Russia's oil exploration move in Bangladesh, that indicate energy support in Bangladesh, that indicate geoeconomics, that is promoting economic support to faraway regions in order to ensure better collaboration. Such kind of cooperation guided by economic considerations known as geoeconomics. And then we have gone to geostrategy, that is making a larger strategy, long-term strategy among countries separated by distances marked by different components is known as geostrategy. So these terms keeps on appearing in paper: geopolitical, geoeconomics and geostrategy. Is this clear, Kriti? Coming to another question, Parth. Sir, India conducted nuclear test in 1974. Then why it is said that India became a nuclear weapon state in 1998 after its second nuclear test? Is there any difference between India's first nuclear test and India's second nuclear test? Yeah, fine. It's an important question. India conducted its first nuclear test in 1974 and the second nuclear test in 1998, both at Pokhran. But after conducting the second nuclear test, India declared itself to be a nuclear weapon state. Why? Clear? In 1974, this nuclear test was conducted beneath the ground, and there were some technical snacks in this test. Clear? So it was not completely successful. The first nuclear test had some technical problems, some technical snacks. Clear? And that is why after this test, it was not declared to be a completely successful exercise, and India could not claim itself to be a nuclear weapon state. But the second nuclear test, Operation Shakti, proved to be completely successful, and that indicated the perfection attained by Indian scientific community. And thereafter, after the successful nuclear test in 1998, India had the confidence to declare itself to be a nuclear weapon state. This was the reason. Clear? Next question is, sir, since Japan is totally under US, can we assume that it's Japan who's opposing India and they are forcing Japan to impose sanctions on India? As it is said that US has huge influence while Japan was framing constitution also. Nayan, there's no doubt, clear, Japan has been under US influence to a large extent, both being located in the Pacific Ocean. Clear? More so, even though Japan was devastated by nuclear attack, thereafter only Japan was largely supported by United States in order to accelerate the process of economic growth and development. Since then, Japan has tied up with United States. United States also gave huge assistance to Japan to wean away Japan from Chinese influence or communist influence of China, and therefore to maintain balance of power. There's no doubt that Japan has been under US control, but Japan imposed sanctions upon India because of United States and other countries? No, Japan has been following an independent foreign policy, and more so, I'll let you know, clear, Japan began to impose sanctions upon India because Japan has been very sensitive on nuclear front, because Japan had been devastated by nuclear attack in 1945. That is why Japan adopted a very sensitive approach towards India's nuclear policy. There can be some impact of United States while imposing sanction, but it can also not be denied that Japan itself was very sensitive towards nuclear approach and therefore went on imposing sanctions upon India. It's true that even in framing constitution of Japan, United States played an important role. In fact, Japan began to stand on its feet once again just because of huge support given by United States. And obviously, Japan is known for its citizens. The people of Japan are the most disciplined and the hardworking people, and just because of these people also, Japan was able to stand on its own feet even after nuclear devastation. Next, sir, so Japan don't have any nuclear weapons still now? No. In course of time, Japan acquired nuclear weapons. In fact, the civil nuclear deal exists between India and Japan Japan has decided to promote nuclear reactors in India. So Japan has nuclear weapons of late, clear? In course of time, Japan also was forced to acquire nuclear weapon category, and therefore Japan at present times has nuclear weapons. It's clear, Sumana. So, these are major dynamics to be understood with respect to international relations. Now, we'll understand about Indo-Japan cooperation on economic front and related to ODA investment sectors. Clear? So, economic cooperation between India and Japan. Contemporary developments, in fact. Clear? Right? Broad heading as contemporary developments in Indo-Japan relationship. Contemporary developments in Indo-Japan relationship. Contemporary developments in Indo-Japan relationship. Indo-Japan relationship. Okay. Right. From the beginning of the 21st century, from the beginning of the 21st century, healthy relationship was started between India and Japan, largely guided by geostrategic factors, that is China factor, geostrategic factors, clear? Right, it must be noted that Japan is a developed nation, in Asian continent, and decided to support India, in infrastructural growth and development, Clear? Right. Japan began to provide sufficient amount, right in capital, amount of official development assistance, ODA, amount of official development assistance to India, on low rates of interest, to promote infrastructural growth, infrastructural growth. Infrastructure growth. Clear? Right. Several projects began to be developed with ODA funds, began to be developed with ODA funds, like Delhi Metro Rail Corporation, Delhi Metro Rail Corporation, DMRC, then Delhi Mumbai Industrial Corridor Project, Delhi Mumbai Industrial Corridor Project. Clear. Then third is dedicated freight corridor, just for goods, dedicated freight corridor, or DFC, dedicated freight corridor, or DFC, freight corridor or DFC, ODA funds or DFC. Clear? Right. Apart from these transportation projects, Japan has also agreed to promote Japan also agreed to promote the construction of bullet train in India. Agreed to promote construction of bullet train in India. Bullet train in India. Right. However, the deadline to construct bullet train, has expired due to lack of coordination among the technical experts, of the two countries. Clear? There's a question. Clear? India have to pay the interest of loan if it is not completed? No, not at all. Clear? Because amount has not been given till the date. It has not been transferred. So if it is transferred, obviously rate of interest has to be given. Clear? Bishwajit, Freud corridor. Right. Next paragraph. Japan has also decided to invest huge amount in clearing and cleaning the river Ganga, in contemporary times. Clear? Right. Moreover, Japan has agreed to develop several smart cities in India. And even to promote Varanasi, city of Varanasi, even decided to promote Varanasi as the sister city of Kyoto. city in Japan, sister city of Kyoto. That Japan is also developing the new capital of Andhra Pradesh, the new capital of Andhra Pradesh, Amravati, new capital of Andhra Pradesh, Amravati, as it is an important Buddhist center, as it is an important Buddhist center. Here only there's a city of Dharnikot, and this was asked in prelims this time. Clear? Dharnikot is located in which state of India? Andhra Pradesh. Clear? Amravati. Clear? Right, next. Right. Right. With assistance of Japan, with assistance of Japan, India has restarted regular teaching curriculum at Nalanda University in Bihar, as a prominent Buddhist center, as a prominent Buddhist center, Clear? Buddhist center. Change paragraph. Clear? Right. Such investments by Japan is a big help to India, in order to maintain healthy relationship, Clear? Right. In order to promote a strong trade relationship, India and Japan concluded the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, in 2011, Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement in 2011. Right. Under this agreement, India and Japan eliminated 94% tariffs, custom duties, 94% tariffs on trade, 4% tariffs on trade in 2012. Clear? 2012. Right. This comprehensive agreement has led to movement of intellectual property, movement of natural persons, neutral person, clear, comma, healthy competition accompanied with cooperation, healthy competition along with cooperation, cooperation, and finally, improvement of business environment, in both countries, business environment in both countries, improvement in environment in both countries, environment in both countries. Clear? So economic and trade relationship between India and Japan. Clear? Now, as we had discussed earlier, Indo-Japan relationship began to take an upward trajectory from the beginning of 21st century, largely influenced by strategic considerations, also known as geostrategic considerations in Indo-Pacific region, in which India and Japan are leading players. So first of all, we'll understand what is this geostrategic consideration that has brought India and Japan on the same plane in the Indo-Pacific region. Clear? So coming to Indo-Pacific region. So coming to Indo-Pacific region, take this case, Indo-Pacific region, will take this map only. Take this case, Indo-Pacific region. Clear? Now understand this region clearly. USA is on this side. Indo-Pacific region includes countries like, first of all, starting with India, then Indian Ocean, then we have China, then Japan, then Philippines, Indonesia, even Australia, and this Pacific ridge almost touching the coast of United States of America. Clear? So this is large Indo-Pacific region, and this is the geostrategic region in which India and Japan is collaborating with each other primarily to check China. Clear? So China is between India and Japan. Clear? And obviously, to check the hegemonizing tendency of China, it is very important for India and Japan to cooperate with each other and to support each other to maintain balance of power. Because obviously, if we look into Southeast Asia, these region is comprised of smaller countries like Philippines, Indonesia, Malaysia, Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam. These countries are not in a capacity to challenge the hegemony of China, and this has become very visible in South China Sea dispute, whereby China has started to establish control over this large region by creating artificial islands, and therefore they even affect the territorial integrity of two countries, Philippines and Vietnam. Philippines on this side, Vietnam on this side, because 9-line, that is South China Sea line, it rarely touches the mainland boundary of Philippines and Vietnam. Clear? So obviously all these smaller countries also wants India and Japan to play a major role in order to check the hegemonizing tendency of China, in order to prevent the unipolarity tendency in largest continent. And in this, there's a third player also, that is United States, not far away from Japan, and United States want to support India and Japan together so that the three countries coming together can play a collective role in order to check the rise of China in Asian continent. So Indo-Japan relationship has to be largely seen in the larger geostrategic factor being the China factor in Asian continent. And therefore in this context only you have to see, look into Quad also, you have to look into other organizations like Quad of 4 also. Then even we have triangular ministerial dialogue also between USA, Japan and India. All these initiatives has been taken largely to deal with the the rising power of China in Asian continent and to prevent unipolarity in large continent of the world. So first of all, Indo-Pacific region, clear? Right? Strategic considerations, heading as strategic considerations in Indo-Japan relationship. Strategic considerations in Indo-Japan relationship. Indo-Japan relationship. Clear? Indo-Japan relationship. Right. Right. The bilateral relationship between India and Japan, India and Japan has larger geostrategic and geopolitical importance for Asian continent, especially in Indo-Pacific region, especially in Indo-Pacific region. Clear? Indo-Pacific region. Right. This geographical region, Indo-Pacific region, this geographical region has recently attracted the attention of all major powers, as it has emerged to be a new theater of regional dominance. Clear? Right. The Indo-Pacific region includes major countries like India, China, Japan, Australia, and the smaller countries of Southeast Asia. Okay? Right. In this region, China has started to assert strongly. In this region, China has started to assert strongly, which has the potential of turning the Asian continent into unipolar continent. Clear? Right. On account of such development, unipolar continent, on account of such development, even United States has come out with a definite Indo-Pacific strategy. Come out with definite Indo-Pacific strategy. Definite Indo-Pacific strategy. Clear? Right. The present US president, very important, the present US President Joe Biden, the present US President Joe Biden, Joe Biden, Joe Biden, Joe Biden wants to promote resilience, RESILIENC, power to endure, has started to promote resilience among the countries of Indo-Pacific, resilience among the countries of Indo-Pacific, clear? Right. At the same time, he wants to create a deterrent effect on China. He wants to create a deterrent, DETERRENT, deterrent effect on China. Deterrent effect on China. Joe Biden's approach, China, clear? China, change paragraph, right? On account of such equations, both India and Japan has to cooperate. They are mandatorily has to cooperate with larger geostrategic perspective. With larger geostrategic perspective. Clear? Perspective, right? In this context, India has advocated in this context, India has advocated the Act East policy, not only Look East, has advocated Act East policy. Focus towards Far Eastern world, Act East policy, which has resulted into three major instruments. Point wise, right? Three major instruments, clear? Number one is Quad of Democracies. Quad of Democracies. Second is Triangular Ministerial Meeting. Triangular Ministerial Meeting. And Quad of G4 as well. Quad of G4. We'll understand this, Quad of G4, clear? So, Quad of Democracies. Quad of Democracies means quadrilateral security dialogue among the four democratic countries, and these four democratic countries are United States, Japan, Australia and India. So, Quad of Democracies means four democratic countries coming for quadrilateral security dialogue in order to cooperate among themselves to maintain security in Indo-Pacific region, because all these countries are related to Indo-Pacific region, clear, United States not being far away, and therefore all these four democratic countries has come together to have quadrilateral security dialogue in order to check the rise of Japan in Asian continent. Rise of Japan in Asia, rise of China in Asian continent. Apart from this, there is a concept of dimension of triangular ministerial meeting, and this triangular ministerial meeting held regularly among the representatives of United States, Japan and India. So United States, Japan and India are cooperating with each other in triangular ministerial meeting, whereby ministers of three major countries, especially the defense minister and foreign minister, meets regularly to discuss the strategic issues of Indo-Pacific region, again to check the rise of China. Third important squad of G4. G4 comprises of four major countries which are contending for the permanent membership of United Nations Security Council. These four G4 countries are Germany, Japan, Brazil and India. Even these four countries, Germany, Japan, India and China, are together against China, because China is objecting to any reform and restructuring of United Nations Security to give permanent membership to any new country. That is why all the G4 who are fighting for permanent membership, that is Germany, Japan, Brazil and India, have made a group, and therefore they are coordinating with each other to check the rise of China in global politics. So all these are major dimensions whereby India is playing a central role in order to check the rise of China in Asian and world politics. There's one thing. Apart from this, defense cooperation, multilateral defense exercise has also begun to be performed, and the most important example being Malabar exercise. That is a naval exercise between United States, India, Japan and Australia, again to show collective strength in the Indo-Pacific region against the naval power of China. So all these are moves guided towards the strategic considerations to maintain balance of power in Asian continent. Clear? Right about this. Clear? Right. India began to follow. India began to follow the Act East policy. India began to follow the Act East policy. India began to follow the Act East policy in order to emphasize on promoting healthy relationship, in order to promote healthy relationship between India, healthy past relationship between India clear between India and the far eastern countries, including Japan and South Korea. Wide far eastern region of Japan and South Korea. Right. Right. With this approach, healthy cooperation has started. Between India and Japan, between India and Japan, India and Japan. Clear? Right. Moreover, such approach of India, moreover, such approach of India, such approach of India has resulted into different has resulted into different dimensions of cooperation, different dimensions of cooperation. Clear? Right, number one. Right, the quad of democracies, the quad of democracies has been established. The quad of democracies has been established. Established for security dialogue, among United States, Japan, Australia and India. Australia and India. Clear? India. Right, second. Right, the triangular ministerial meeting has been promoted. The triangular ministerial meeting has been promoted among United States, Japan and India, among United States, Japan and India. Third, even quad of G4 nations, has been promoted, comprising of Germany, Japan, Brazil and India. To cooperate against the rising power of China. Against the rising power of China. Rising power of China. 1, 2, 3. Power of China. Clear? Right, next paragraph. Moreover, a multilateral naval exercise, known as the Malabar exercise, is performed among the navies of United States, India, Japan and Australia to show collective strength, against the naval power, of China. Naval power of China. Clear? Right. all such, all such, all such developments, all such developments converge at a single agenda, converge at a single agenda, converge at a single agenda to check the domination of China, to check the domination of China in Asian continent, China in Asian continent, China in Asian continent, Asian continent, China in Asian continent, China in Asian continent. So Indo-Japan relationship is guided by highly strategic consideration, and they need to cooperate with each other. That is mandatory. That is, without this, this whole architecture cannot exist against Chinese domination. Clear? Meanwhile, clear? Apart from all these strategic considerations, clear? Indo and Japan cooperates with each other on other front as well. On other front, basically to boost their bilateral relationship. Clear? Now, before we start with that, first of all, some questions. Sir, in related to international relation, please explain the meaning of frequently used terms like memorandum of understanding and memorandum of agreement. Clear? So we'll understand about memorandum of understanding and memorandum of agreement. What do you mean by this? Clear? See, again, I'll let you know. When we use the term memorandum of understanding, also known as MOU, clear? Memorandum of understanding means it is basically an understanding for an agreement, clear? So it is basically a kind of understanding for signing an agreement in coming time. So logically speaking, I'll let you know, memorandum of understanding is the first step towards signing a proper agreement in course of time, and therefore legally it is not binding in nature. So memorandum of understanding is not legally binding in nature. It just indicates the convergence of interest of two and more than two parties in order to go for a further cooperation and in coming time to sign an agreement. So memorandum of understanding is an understanding to sign an agreement in coming time. It is not legally binding. When we use the term memorandum of agreement means now it is an agreement in order to enforce the major agreement signed already. Clear? So it is a step further from memorandum of understanding. So memorandum of agreement is no agreement has been signed and now it has to decide how to implement this agreement in coming time. So memorandum of agreement means the SOPs, that is standard operating procedures to implement the agreement which has already been decided. Clear? So understanding is just an understanding to sign an agreement. Memorandum of agreement means agreement how to implement that agreement, the required SOPs, that is standard operating procedure. This is the difference between memorandum of understanding and memorandum of agreement. Clear? This is one thing. Another question is, sir, India is not a part of NATO. Fine, clear? India is not a part of NATO, but how Indian army work in NATO? See, again, I'll tell you, clear? If there is a joint venture of some countries in order to restore peace and stability, Indian army can work in NATO, but it all depends on the decision of the government. India cannot be forced to deploy its forces in NATO because obviously India is not a member of NATO and India follows an independent foreign policy. But in case of protecting democracy or in case of providing any relief and rehabilitation to the people affected because of natural calamities, India may deploy some of its armed forces to work along with NATO forces. But that is not meant for attacking any country, because India does not believe in any military strategy. India wants to promote global peace and security through constructive dialogue and peaceful negotiation. So NATO operates even in areas affected by natural calamities. Indian forces can be deployed with NATO to work for rehabilitation work. This can be done. That is Vishwajit. Clear? Against Park. So what is the difference between India Pacific region and It's Asia Pacific region. Clear? See, I'll let you know. Difference between Asia Pacific region. Asia Pacific region is basically, when we use the term Asia Pacific region, it is associated with that part of Asia which lies in the Pacific Ocean. Clear? That is that part of Asian continent which lies in Pacific Ocean. While Indo-Pacific is an integrated region that combines the Indian Ocean, the Pacific Ocean, and the landmass surrounding them. So Asia Pacific region is that part of Asia that lies in Pacific Ocean. When we say Indo-Pacific region, it is a larger region. Indo-Pacific region means that it is a region that combines Indian Ocean, that combines Pacific Ocean, and that even connect the landmass surrounding them. First, with map it will be more clear. Coming to Indo-Pacific region. So Indo-Pacific, look into this map. Indo-Pacific region means the part of Indian Ocean, then the Pacific Ocean, and the surrounding landmass. This is known as Indo-Pacific region. So Indian Ocean on the one hand, Pacific Ocean on the other hand, and the surrounding landmass comprising of India, China, Japan, Australia, and Southeast Asian countries. This whole region comprises known as Indo-Pacific region. Asia Pacific region means simply the region whereby the part of Asia lies in Pacific Ocean. Clear? So Asia Pacific region. Clear? Asia Pacific. Asia Pacific. Images. Now look into Asia Pacific region. Clear? Asia Pacific region means that part which is a part of Pacific, which is Asia Pacific region. Any region you can take. Yeah, take this one only. What is the map? Yeah, look into this Asia Pacific region. The part of Asia which is with associated Pacific Ocean, that is Indo-Pacific region did not include this region or the upper part, even the region that is above China, Mongolia and all. Clear? All these are part of Asia Pacific region. Clear? So Asia Pacific region will include that part of Asia which is connected with Pacific Ocean. Clear? Indo-Pacific region is Indian Ocean, okay, large area. It is not included Asia Pacific. Clear? So in Asia Pacific, only land mass of this region connected with Pacific Ocean. It's known as Asia Pacific region, not including Indian Ocean. But when we say Indo-Pacific region, this region along with Indian Ocean, Pacific Ocean, and the land mass. Clear? This land mass is not a part of Indo-Pacific region. This part is part of Asia Pacific region. So Asia Pacific region is that part of Asia which is connected with Pacific region. So those countries having outlet towards Pacific Ocean belonging to Asian continent will be Asia Pacific region. Indo-Pacific means the area including Indian Ocean and Pacific Ocean along with the land mass. So obviously that will be a larger region because Indian Ocean is a part of Indo-Pacific region. So difference between Asia Pacific region is that part of Asia which has outlet with Pacific Ocean. Simply Indo-Pacific means the large parts of Indian Ocean, Pacific Ocean, and the surrounding land mass. All this combined together forms Indo-Pacific region. It's clear? Very important part. Clear? Just let me know part. It's clear, revert back. Next is, are there any countries that are supporting the hegemony of China? Shubham. Clear? Again, I'll let you know. In this task of hegemonizing Asian continent, China is not being supported by any country. In fact, China is not being supported by Russia also. Clear? The one country that could be anticipated to support China in this venture could be Russia. But in reality, even Russia is apprehensive about the rapid rise of China. Clear? That is why Russia also does not approve the rapid rise of China. Why Russia does not approve? Because even after the end of Cold War or during the end of Cold War, all socialist and communist countries were under the domination, under the leadership of Russia, and therefore Russia believes that this position of Russia can be taken away by China as the representative of communist ideology. Russia never wants to lose that image, and that is why Russia never wants its image to be taken by China. And that is why Russia is also very keen to check the hegemonizing tendency of China. So in this hegemonizing tendency of China, China is left all alone, and that is why China always goes on promoting its role on its own. One country that has become a part of this, not because of hegemonizing tendency, but primarily to counter India with China, that country is Pakistan. Clear? And that is why One Belt, One Road policy and other projects like Gwadar Port is promoted in Pakistan by China, because obviously Pakistan supports China, because Pakistan and China together wants to encircle and surround India. A string of pearls can be seen in this context only. Clear? So obviously in Pakistan supports China to a large extent. Clear? To some extent China is supported by Iran, just because Iran faces sanctions by Western European countries like United States. But these countries do not support China because of hegemonizing tendency. These countries support because of their own political and national interest. So in this task, China is left all alone. Pakistan and Iran support them, not for hegemonizing, but to counter the other countries like India in this process. It's clear, Shubham? Now, coming to another question. Sir, why China and India can't have good relationship, as they are the part of the same continent, as well as they share some common international platform? Why we always look at West to be the good option for India? Okay, fine. Very strategic question that has been asked. That is, why China and India? No, this question needs to be elaborated. Clear? Question is, why China and India can't have good relationship? Fine, clear. As they are the part of the same continent, as well as they share some common international platform like SCO, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, even BRICS also. Clear. Go. Okay. So platform. Why we always look at the West to be the good option for India? Now, why? Just understand. Clear? As far as good relationship is concerned, clear? Therefore, in international relations, you need to understand two concepts. Why? Because obviously China would be done separately, but again, I'll let you know. Clear? There are two concepts in international relations that needs to be understood. One is known as competitive countries. Competitive country syndrome. Competitive country syndrome. And another is complementary countries syndrome. These are two major concepts to be understood. Clear? Competitive country syndrome and complementary country syndrome. What is this? We need to understand. Clear? When we say competitive country syndrome, means the two countries are basically competitive to each other and both are fighting for same objective. When do you have competition? You have competition among yourself or among people when you have common target to be achieved. So since one common thing has to be achieved by both the parties, they will compete with each other so as to achieve that thing first. Clear? So that is known as competitive country syndrome. India and China, and any two countries having competitive syndrome will never have healthy relationship. Why? Because obviously the two countries will compete each other and one country will try to leave the country back so that the amount or the target is achieved by them. So this is known as competitive country syndrome. India and China are considered to be competitive countries in international relationship. Why? Because both India and China are largely energy hungry country. Clear? India also needs uninterrupted supply of energy like oil and gas to support its economic growth. China also needs uninterrupted supply of energy to supplement its energy resource for economic growth. Since both the countries are competing with each other to acquire more and more resources. Clear? Obviously, the two countries will always fight against each other in international and bilateral forum, because wherever India goes to procure resources, he finds China also there, and therefore both the countries go for competitive bidding. And in this competitive bidding, obviously one country tries to outsmart the other country, and that results into competitive rivalry. So obviously when it is competitive rivalry, relationship cannot be better. The best example of this is Central Asia. Clear? Why China is very keen to connect Central Asian countries country, and why India has also advocated the policy known as Connect Central Asia, because in contemporary times, large amount of nuclear resource, large amount of oil and gas has been found in Central Asian countries like Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, clear? And both countries wants to exploit the resources or use the resources of Central Asia, clear? And that is why one belt, one road policy which is advocated by China in Central Asia is being objected by India, because obviously India will get isolated. Rather, some experts say that India should join this one belt, one road policy so that the two countries, China and India, can play a fair game in Central Asia. Even Central Asian nations want the two countries to come together. Why? Because Central Asian nations also know if China alone come to this region, it will dictate its own price, and therefore they won't get fair price for their products. So they want another competitive rival to come to this region so that in this competitive bidding, they will get fair prices for oil and gas. Clear? So obviously, it may be beneficial for Central Asian countries, but it lead to competitive rivalry between India and China. The fight is for energy diplomacy. The fight is for energy in 21st century. And both India and China are energy hungry country. They are competing against each other to acquire more and more resources. What is the issue in South China Sea region? The main issue in South China Sea region is the coast known as Malacca Bar. Clear? Bar Malacca, or rather Strait of Malacca. The Strait of Malacca is a region between Indonesia and Malaysia, and 40% of oil and gas in China comes from West Asia through Fish Air and crosses the Malacca Strait to reach China through South China Sea. Therefore, China wants complete control over South China Sea so that this supply of oil and gas is not disrupted in coming time, because with this, China's economic growth cannot be accelerated. Same is the case with India, and that is why, since competitive rivalry syndrome exists between India and China, both finds each other against in a competitive market, and therefore it results into differences. Clear? But for it's not good relationship. There are good relationship because bilaterally India and China are good trading partners. Clear? Since the opening of Nathula Pass in Sikkim, both India and China have resorted to good trading relationship. But when you go to third market, international market, both countries find themselves to be on opposite camp, competitive camp. Clear? At the same time, we have another syndrome known as complementary country syndrome. If the two countries are producing things which are exclusive to each other, obviously both will cooperate with each other. The best example is Southeast Asia. India is the leading producer of software products, but India lacks in hardware production. Southeast Asian countries like Singapore, they are very bad in software production, but they are very good in hardware production. Obviously, this is exclusive production being done between India and Southeast Asia, and that ultimately leads to complementary relationship. And when this complementary relationship will be there, obviously it will lead to healthy relationship. So there is a theory in international relationship known as competitive country syndrome, complementary country syndrome. Competitive country syndrome will affect bilateral relationship every time. Complementary syndrome will promote healthy relationship perpetually. This is clear. The question was asked. Name is not there. Is the question answer clear? Whosoever asks, just give your name also. 5599. Apurva Ghosh, clear? So it is clear why India and China cannot be on the same table, and why we are looking for the West just to go take more and more energy, because West countries are totally apprehensive about China. Clear? Next question. In the World War II, US dropped atomic bombs on Japan, resulting in the destruction of two major cities of Japan. It is natural for Japan to hate US for this, but after the Second World War, how did Japan become so close to US? Clear? See, even though Japan got devastated by the nuclear attack of United States, clear? Thereafter only United States began to provide all support to Japan to come out from the scar of nuclear attack. This was also because of two reasons. United States wanted to really develop Japan, because obviously United States never wanted any antagonistic neighbor. Japan is not far away from US, and more so because in the era of Cold War, United States was apprehensive that if Japan is not supported, Japan will obviously tilt towards the communist China, and the whole balance of power in Asia Pacific region will get disturbed. Clear? That is why, to keep Japan away from China, United States began to give huge support to Japan, and just because of this only, United States and Japan came closer to each other. Clear, Apurva Ghosh? Thank you, sir. Got it. Vishwajit. Fine. Next question. Sir, India doesn't have direct contact with Pacific Ocean. Then why India is considered as part of Asia Pacific region? It's considered because obviously India is considered to be Asia Pacific region because the whole part of Asia which is connected with Pacific region. India is not directly connected, but India has counted Pacific region because this whole landmass, interconnected landmass is taken. That is all the interconnected landmass which has directly or indirect outlet to Pacific Ocean is counted in Asia Pacific region. So India is connected to China also, India is connected to Southeast Asia also, and that is why this region, this is known as ARC region. Clear? This whole ARC is considered to be a part of Asia Pacific region, because if India is not there, it will be a break in this ARC, and in this break of this ARC we cannot count Asia Pacific region. Clear? Parth. Sir, Russia is a part of Europe or Asia? Both. Russia is a part of Europe also, Russia is a part of Asia also. So we can count Russia and Europe also, we count Russia and Asia also. Sir, can we compete with China where China is a communist country like autocratic country, whether India is world's largest democracy? How can we compete, sir? See, we are competing with China largely related to energy resources. Clear? Because both needs uninterrupted supply of energy, and therefore both are competing against each other to acquire more and more resource rich regions. Therefore the real competition between India and China is related to energy sector, not with related to political regime. China has adopted communist regime and India is a pure democratic country, so no comparison at all with respect to political system. Rather, competitions between India and China to acquire more and more resources. Okay. Sir, is IR is always guided by realism? If not, what are some examples? Of late, in contemporary times, international relationship is guided by realism. Realism means guided by the national interest, not by ideal principles of global peace. Obviously, global peace is there, but obviously, more importantly, immediately, the most important fact is realism, because every country is looking for its own national interest. Clear? Till the time every country is looking for its national interest, there's no harm. But in course of time, if national interest encroaches upon global peace or multilateral peace, then it becomes a threat to global peace and security. So till the point every country is looking for its own national interest, there's nothing harm in that. But if that national interest is at the cost of the interest of other nation, obviously it will be dispute, and that can create a threat for global peace and security. But most of the international relations are guided by realism. Clear, sir. Apurva, Partha, clear, sir. Thank you. Vishwajit, fine, clear. So, these important things. Now, apart from all these strategic issues, Indo-Japan relationship is largely guided by another area of cooperation known as nuclear diplomacy between India and Japan. Clear? Why we need to discuss? Because initially it was a thorn in Indo-Japan relationship, but of late they have started to cooperate even on nuclear front. Clear? So nuclear diplomacy between India and Japan. Nuclear diplomacy between India and Japan. Now, we had discussed retrospectively, this was the major issue of controversy between India and Japan, because Japan, being very sensitive, was apprehensive about India's non-signatory status of NPT and conduct of 2 nuclear tests. Clear? But of late, India and Japan has come together on nuclear front also. Clear? And nuclear front, since they come together, they have even concluded civil nuclear deal as well. Clear? So we'll need to discuss about this. Right, first of all, the historical perspective briefly. Right, the nuclear diplomacy between India and Japan, the nuclear diplomacy in India and Japan, Japan has been marked by ups and downs, has been marked by ups and down, clear? Right. In the era of Cold War, Japan was very sensitive. Towards nuclear weapons and program, and wanted and wanted elimination of nuclear weapons, elimination of nuclear weapons. Clear? Right? In fact, Japan insisted that India should sign NPT and CTBT. India should sign NPT and CTBT which was considered to be discriminatory by India, which were considered to be discriminatory by India. India, clear? Right, India. Right, in next paragraph, right, the nuclear diplomacy between India and Japan, the nuclear diplomacy between India and Japan took a positive shape. Took a positive shape. In the beginning of the 21st century. As United States accepted India. United States accepted India as a responsible and an advanced nuclear state. Clear? Nuclear state. Right? This resulted into partial exemptions for India by NSG, Nuclear Suppliers Group. Partial exemption for India by NSG in 2008 to carry nuclear trade and commerce. Clear? Nuclear trade and commerce. Right? Several countries like Russia and France. Several countries like Russia and France, and even US started nuclear trade and commerce with NSG exemptions. Clear? Change paragraph. Right. India and Japan began to negotiate. Civil nuclear deal. In 2010. Clear? Right. After several rounds of negotiation, and even amendment in Japanese constitution. Japan cannot start nuclear deal with any country which is not signatory of NPT, and even amend some amendment of Japanese constitution. Japanese constitution. A civil nuclear deal was finally concluded. A civil nuclear deal was finally concluded in 2016. Concluded in 2016. 2016. 2016. 2016. 16. Clear? Right. This nuclear deal will provide India access to the Japanese nuclear market, access to the Japanese nuclear market and technology. Nuclear market and technology. Technology. Clear? Right. This is highly important for India. This is highly important for India. Highly important for India because majority of the nuclear parts in global market, are made by Japan, through important companies like Hitachi, Mitsubishi and even Toshiba. All these are Japanese companies. Hitachi, Mitsubishi and Toshiba. Right. In fact, right, very important. In fact, global companies like General Electric, global companies like GE and Arriva, French company, even global companies like General Electric and Arriva have stakes in Japanese companies, like Hitachi, Mitsubishi and Toshiba. Japanese companies of Hitachi, Mitsubishi and Toshiba. To procure nuclear parts. To acquire or to purchase nuclear parts. Clear? Right. Therefore, India will have access to state-of-the-art technology, modern technology, will have access to state-of-the-art technology in Japanese market, which will facilitate both countries to achieve the dream of Asian G2 group of two, India and Japan, achieve the dream of Asian G2. not liked by China at all. Clear? Asian G2. Asian G2. Clear? Change paragraph. Right. India is keen to enter. India is keen to enter Japanese market. India is keen to enter Japanese market because of advanced technology in Japan. Advanced technology in Japan. Clear? Right. In fact, several Japanese companies are already operating in India. Several Japanese companies are already operating in India in automobile and electronic sector. In automobile and electronic sector. Automobile and electronic sector. Electronic sector. Okay. Right. The Japanese company Toyota. The Japanese company Toyota is a leading manufacturer of automobiles. Is a leading manufacturer of automobiles in India. Automobiles in India. Right. Similarly, Japanese company Honda manufactures quality vehicles in India. Manufactures quality vehicles in India. Vehicles in India. Right. Another Japanese company Suzuki. Japanese company Suzuki, along with Indian company Maruti Suzuki, along with Indian company Maruti is the largest manufacturer of automobiles in India. Clear? Right. Moreover, Japanese company Sony. Is a leading manufacturer of electronics, leading manufacturer of electronic equipments in Indian market. Indian market. So, cooperation is already there by highly developed technological companies. Clear? Change paragraph. Right. In this way, India and Japan shares a strong bond. In bilateral relationship. Not the prospect. Coming time. Clear? What is expected out of this relationship? Just understand. Clear? India and Japan in coming time will further boost and cement their bilateral relationship in order to promote not only their relationship but in order to maintain proper balance and democratic order in large Asian continent by checking the rise of China. At the same time, both India and China can play a major role in the large region of Indo-Pacific by cooperating with each other. At the same time, India and China is also cooperating with each other at international level because both countries are struggling to reform and restructure the United Nations Security Council in order to get permanent membership along with Germany and Brazil, that is known as Group of Four. So there are layers of areas to be cooperated between India and Japan, and therefore just because there are multiple layers of cooperation from bilateral to international level, it is quite expected by among experts that Indo-Japan relationship has a bright future because it will acquire much maturity and depth in coming time in the larger strait of stable Asia and democratic world order. Very important to be understood. Clear? Before we come on to prospect of Indo-Japan relationship, we'll take some questions. Sir, to what extent individual personality influences a country's international relations? Like in the Trump era, we found hasty moves, and in the next term of Joe Biden, we found another kind of moves. Clear? I'll let you know. Obviously, clear, the head of the state and the head of the government plays an important role to drive foreign policy. Clear? So obviously, for example, like Donald Trump, he took some hasty steps, the most important being the visa regime with India that resulted into huge discontent among Indians, no doubt. Clear? Trump, or rather Joe Biden, is more strategic, more cautious in move, and Joe Biden is looking to things from larger perspective, his most important being separate strategy for Indo-Pacific region. So obviously the change in personality or individual personality plays an important role. Take the case of Indo-Japan only. The most important personality who has shaped Indo-Japan relationship was the former president of Japan, Shinzo Abe. Clear? Shinzo Abe plays the most important role to promote Quad also and to promote bilateral relationship between India and Japan. In fact, clear, like take the case for India also. Clear? There has been paradigm shift in India's foreign policy. Paradigm means policy shift altogether. There has been paradigm shift in India's foreign policy with election of Narendra Modi as Prime Minister. What is the biggest example? Biggest example is Israel. Clear? The reason is, till this time, all major prime ministers of India avoided any formal relationship with Israel just because Israel is not accepted by Islamic countries, and more so Israel is not accepted by Muslim communities in India. So all the prime ministers avoided any relationship with Israel in formal sense. Clear? Even if relationship was there, it was not brought to media. It was underplayed in media. Clear? But when Narendra Modi became prime minister, he made it openly clear that he has to cultivate strong relationship with Israel, and therefore India and Israel has come together very closely. In fact, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi became the first Indian Prime Minister to make a state visit to Israel. Clear? So India has always supported the cause of Palestinians in West Asia, but this has changed radically under Narendra Modi, who has decided to support and cultivate strong ties with Israel. So obviously personalities, individual personality shapes foreign policy to a large extent. It keeps on changing. Also ideological changes take place. There's no doubt about it. Clear? Subhashri. Coming to another question by Nayan. Sir, you said that India and China is competing for energy. Then why India is not focusing on Venezuela, which has a huge reserves of oil, though India went against Western countries and is buying natural gas from Russia? Why not Venezuela? Again, I'll let you know. Clear? Venezuela has been an important country, no doubt. In fact, India supported Hugo Chavez also, the dictator of Venezuela. Clear? And therefore, Venezuela can be a big supporter. But again, why not Venezuela? The reason is that Venezuela and Cuba are two countries, clear, which are totally opposed by United States. Why? Because Cuba was a communist country, and like views of Cuba, even Venezuela is tilted towards communism, especially president or dictator Hugo Chavez. Clear? So if any country goes close to Cuba and Venezuela, it automatically mean antagonizing United States. And as we had been discussing, India at this time cannot afford to antagonize United States in a larger perspective. So obviously India avoids any relationship, even energy cooperation, with Cuba and Venezuela, because these are the two countries in the American continent which are not approved by United States largely. In fact, they are anti-US in American continent. So only two countries which are anti-US in American continent are the countries of Cuba and Venezuela. So any country coming close to Cuba and Venezuela will have the wrath of United States, no doubt. That is why you won't hear about bilateral relationship between Cuba and Venezuela on the one hand and other countries on the other hand. Clear? Some countries are completely isolated in global politics that include Cuba, Venezuela and North Korea. Clear? So largely all these countries are totally bypassed in global politics because all these countries are not approved by United States. It's clear, Nayan. Next is, sir, how Indian PM promote Donald Trump to give vote in US? Can he say this? Obviously, again, I'll let you know, clear. There are some protocols to be followed by the head of the government. Obviously, any prime minister cannot go on to ask for votes of the leader of other countries. It is not done. But obviously, clear, there are some things that go on with personal charisma also, personality also, no doubt about it. And just because of change personality, certain protocols are also compromise to some extent, but obviously that was a personal decision that was done or that was taken, and therefore it was asked to promote Donald Trump, or rather Indian Prime Minister promoted the candidature of Donald Trump. Clear? That is politically guided also, don't worry about this, but obviously it is not in compliance with diplomatic protocols. It's clear. It's clear about Cuba and Venezuela. You need to understand this is very important to understand. It's Cuba and Venezuela are very important. Clear? Do understand this is very important. Cuba and Venezuela. See, look into this. This is Venezuela in South America. This is Cuba here, and to the south is United States. Clear? So Cuba is here, Venezuela is here, and both these countries are considered to be anti-US. In this sense, because they are anti-US, any country coming closer to either Cuba or Venezuela is bound to antagonize US sentiment and it will affect relationship with United States. So India also, Cuba, Venezuela, North Korea, they are completely isolated in international relationships, international relations. It's clear. India and Japan, right? Prospect, right? The prospect of Indo-Japan relationship. The prospect of Indo-Japan relationship. The future. The prospect of Indo-Japan relationship. Clear? Right. In contemporary times, multi-layered cooperation is visible. Multi-layered cooperation is visible between India and Japan. Visible between India and Japan. Clear? Right. India and Japan. Right. Bilaterally, the two countries needs to cooperate. The two countries needs to cooperate not only for mutual growth, not only for mutual growth, but to maintain peace and stability, in Asian continent. Clear? Right. Right. Regionally, bilaterally, then regionally. Regionally, India and Japan needs to be together, needs to be together, needs to be together to protect the rights and interest, to protect the rights and interest of countries, rights and interest of countries in Indo-Pacific region, in Indo-Pacific region, in Indo-Pacific region, Indo-Pacific region, Indo-Pacific region, Indo-Pacific region. Indo-Pacific region. Pacific region. Indo-Pacific region. Indo-Pacific region against the domination of China. Domination of China. Domination of China. Okay. China. Right, next. Domination of China. Right. At multilateral level. Right. At multilateral level. India and Japan has to cooperate. India and Japan has to cooperate with countries like United States and Australia, with countries like United States and Australia, to legitimize their balancing role, in Asian continent, change paragraph, right? At global level, India and Japan, at global level, India and Japan has to be together, to reform and restructure, the United Nations Security Council, to reform and restructure the United Nations Security Council, to reflect the contemporary realities of the world, So multi-layered requirement, clear? Right, such multi-layered indispensability, makes it clear that Indo-Japan relationship will acquire more depth and maturity in coming time. Prospect. So retrospect, contemporary developments and the prospect. Indo-Japan relationship. Clear? Now, after Indo-Japan, three major powers, and they're very deciding: United States, Russia, and Japan. Clear? Now, we'll move on to European continent and in European continent proper. Clear? With Russia, we had discussed separately because Russia is part of both Europe and Asia, but very important for India. Clear? Now, we'll move on to European continent and European continent. First of all, we'll discuss India's bilateral relationship with a country that has always supported India in all circumstances, and that country is none other than France. So we'll discuss Indo-French bilateral relationship. Clear? Before this, we have a question here from Dibiedu. Clear? Dibiedu, what is the meaning of blacklist country or grey list country? Clear? See, there's a concept of blacklist country in international politics. According to this concept, this is basically decided by FATF. Clear? There's an international body known as FATF, which is Financial Action Task Force. Clear? So there's a body known as Financial Action Task Force, and this Financial Action Task Force identified the countries which are countries that are placed in blacklist. Clear? Any country or organization which is placed in the blacklist are those countries which are to be excluded from other countries just because they are alleged to have unacceptable and unethical behavior. Clear? So those countries which are considered to be following unacceptable and unethical behavior are identified and placed under the blacklist or the grey list by an international body known as the Financial Action Task Force. Clear? So Financial Action Task Force was a very important organization, is an organization that places country in blacklist, and the countries included are North Korea, Iran, and Myanmar. Clear? So the countries which are included in the blacklist are North Korea, Iran, and the country of Myanmar. So countries of North Korea, Iran, and Myanmar included under the blacklist declared by Financial Action Task Force. Those countries which are following unacceptable and unethical behavior, and other countries needs to remain excluded. In this blacklist, Cuba and Venezuela is not included because obviously they are already having isolation and they don't follow such unethical behavior as of now. Clear? Especially after the death of Fidel Castro in Cuba, Hugo Chavez in Venezuela. It's clear, Dibiedu. Next is clear. Were there any sanctions that were imposed on the US after the nuclear attack on Japan? Clear, I'll let you know. See, again, no sanctions were imposed upon US. See, you have touched upon a very sensitive issue. Again, I'll let you know. No sanctions were imposed upon US after nuclear attack on Japan. Ethically speaking, obviously, any country responsible for devastation needs to pay a penalty. Clear? But United States claimed that it has dropped nuclear bombs on Japan because Japan was a fascist power and a threat to global peace and security. So it was justified that United States has dropped nuclear bombs on Japan just to end the fascist power and to reestablish democratic order all across the world. So in the name of promoting and establishing democratic order all across the world, United States claimed that it has dropped nuclear bomb, and just because of this, no sanctions or penalty were imposed upon United States. In fact, that is the advantage of being a superpower. It's clear, Shubham? Okay, now we'll move on to bilateral relationship with countries of European continent. First of all, we'll discuss Indo-French relationship. So bilateral relationship between India and France. Very important country. India and France. This is the only country with which we don't have any issue. Clear? So India and France. So first of all, we'll discuss retrospectively, then the contemporary issues, and then the prospect. Clear? So coming to Indo-French relationship, retrospectively. Just understand retrospectively. Clear? India and France are countries which are connected to each other right from modern times. Clear? From modern times, India and France came together. Why modern times? By the beginning of 19th century only, or by the end of 18th century, because before 18th century, France was guided by medieval system and institution, and France became a modern nation state and a republic as a result of French Revolution that took place from 1789 till 1799. Clear? Even before French Revolution also, France got connected with India because France came to India for trading purposes after establishing French East India Company as a totally state-sponsored company by France. Clear? So unlike British East India Company, which was an exclusive private trading company, the French East India Company was a government-owned company headed by France in Paris. Clear? French East India Company first came to India in 1664. They established the factories at Surat and Masulipatanam, and thereafter they began to trade. But in course of time, French East India Company were defeated by the British East India Company, and even though France was prohibited to trade with India, France was allowed to establish monopoly over the regions of Pondicherry, Yanam and Karaikal on the eastern coast and Mahe on the western coast of India. So you need to understand, it's very important for modern history also, French established their control over Pondicherry, Yanam, Karaikal on the eastern coast, Mahe on the western coast, and their area in Bengal known as Chandanagar was integrated with the province of Bengal. Clear? Do understand this? I'll let you know. Clear? French settlements in India. Images. We'll look into that. Clear? It's very important to understand French settlements in India. Yeah, take this map. Okay, fine. To look into this map. Clear? So French settlement. Clear? So French settlements in India. Clear? French settlements in India were in the region of Pondicherry, Karaikal, Yanam. Clear? Masulitam was the factory and Mahe on the western coast of India. These four areas combined together formed the Union Territory of Pondicherry. The Union Territory of Pondicherry, which is known as Union Territory of Puducherry as of now. Pondicherry comprises of Pondicherry, Karaikal and Yanam on the eastern coast, Mahe on the western coast. Their area Chandanagar in Bengal was integrated with the province of Bengal. And these areas were retained by French even after being defeated by British East India Company, and they retained these areas even till India became independent. Moreover, connection between India and France can also be traced to one province of India here in the western part. This province was that of Mysore. Clear? There was a province of Mysore in this region, and both Hyder Ali and his son and successor Tipu Sultan were supported by the French against the British. Clear? In fact, Mahe was promoted as French settlement by Hyder Ali, and it became a reason for Second Anglo-Mysore War. Clear? At the same time, even though France was defeated and France was allowed to retain political control over this region, large number of French people got settled in the territory of Pondicherry. When India became independent in 1947, India and France concluded a bilateral treaty known as Indo-French Treaty in 1954. And under the provisions of Indo-French Treaty, France peacefully surrendered the regions of Pondicherry, Yanam, Karaikal and Mahe to Indian government. Indian government combined all these regions to develop Union Territory of Pondicherry because it had sizable section of French population in this region. So large number of French people were still there in this region, and therefore it was declared to be a centrally administered region known as Union Territory of Pondicherry. Clear? From here, healthy relationship began to take place between India and France. So we'll discuss about retrospectively. Clear, right? Indo-France relationship. Right, subheading retrospect. Clear? Retrospect. Right. India and France and France began to interact with each other, 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 each other, each other, each other during 17th century, during 17th century, when French East India Company, when French East India Company started to trade with India, French East India Company started to trade with India. Trade with India. Clear? Right. The French established their political control, established the political control over Chandarnagar in Bengal, over Chandarnagar in Bengal. Even now Chandarnagar has sizable French population. Control over Chandarnagar in Bengal, comma, Pondicherry, Yanam and Karaikal on the eastern coast, Pondicherry, Yanam and Karaikal on the eastern coast, and Mahe on the western coast, and Mahe on the western coast, near Calicut, Mahe on the western coast, Mahe on the western coast. Okay, right. Even though French East India Company was defeated, even though the French East India Company was defeated by the British, is defeated by the British, it retained its political control. It retained its political control over Pondicherry, Yanam, Karaikal and Mahe. Pondicherry, Yanam, Karaikal and Mahe. Right. Moreover, the rulers of Mysore, you must have done in modern India. Moreover, the rulers of Mysore, Hyder Ali and Tipu Sultan, the rulers of Mysore, Hyder Ali and Tipu Sultan, supported French, and even the French Revolution. Tipu Sultan planted a tree of liberty at Srangapatnam, supported the French Revolution, liberty, equality and fraternity ideals, supported French Revolution. Clear? French Revolution. Change paragraph. Clear? Right. French. Right. After India's independence, formal bilateral relationship between India and France, formal bilateral relationship between India and France was established in 1954. Was established in 1954. 1954. Established in 1954. Okay, now we'll come to that. What was the consequence of this bilateral relationship between India and France? And I'll answer some of your questions also, like why Act East policy differentiate between Actis policy and Lucas policy. I'll do that. Why Myanmar listed in blacklist? Clear? So we'll come to these questions also, and we'll discuss subsequent development after Indo-French bilateral agreement in 1954. Clear? We'll continue after the break. We'll have a break for 1 hour. We'll exactly start at 2 o'clock. Clear? Thank you.